Ladies and gents, welcome to GBX, and this is Will Trump attack Greenland by channel War Fronts? Yeah, like this channel. This channel delivers a really high quality of geopolitics videos. And Trump has been talking about Greenland recently, about how he will take over Greenland, or like definitive sentences like that. And seeing how geopolitics works, how they chase after that Russian ship, and how Greenland was kind of instrumental. I can see where Trump's mentality come from. Like, he really wants Greenland. So, okay, wherever you stand on this topic, one thing's for damn sure: Trump takes Greenland very seriously. He's been talking about this for a long time. So, what's fucked up thing about this? How is it gonna work? If you attack Greenland, isn't that attacking NATO country? If you attack NATO country, what does that even mean? How would your people in America would like that? I don't know how this works really. Is this one of those things where like Trump might do it? It might be just the last mistake he makes, because Trump is really serious about that. It's not just Trump talking about it; his people are talking about it as well, which means it's a group plan in a way. I don't know. It's gonna be interesting. Let's do this one.
4 years ago, it would have seemed like a fantasy, the idea that the US military might invade, occupy, and annex the island of Greenland, a sparsely populated, semi-autonomous territory within the kingdom of longtime US ally Denmark. But today, in the aftermath of American operations in Venezuela to capture Nicolas Maduro, it no longer seems so unlikely, does it?
Yeah.
Washington is flexing its muscles in the Western Hemisphere. The new Donroe Doctrine calls for US dominance over all the Americas, and officials in the Trump administration are openly discussing taking Greenland by force.
Trump called it Donroe Doctrine. Yeah, he did.
Secretary of State Marco Rubio has sought to downplay these threats, saying the US is instead focused on buying the island. The fact that Copenhagen and Nuuk both say it's not for sale is stirring worries about what happens next. So now seems as good a time as any for us to dive into these threats and try and figure out what they really do mean. Are they credible? Are they just pressure tactics? Or are they the prelude to another sharp demonstration of America's military prowess, only this time turned against a treaty ally? All that is gold. Read some of the reporting on Greenland, and it can feel like you've slipped into a parallel universe, one in which the United States is less a superpower and more a super predator. Just listen to this from the Wall Street Journal, quote, "Trump and his team have declined to rule out using force to take over Greenland," White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt said Tuesday about the issue that, of course, utilizing the US military is always an option at the commander-in-chief's disposal, end quote. That is not a statement any reasonable person just a few years back would have ever expected to read. Nor would they have expected to hear that this threat of force was potentially being used to leverage Nuuk and Copenhagen into selling the territory to Washington.
Okay, let's just assume they used military power, right? But after that, what if people from Greenland, just like Ukraine, fights back? Isn't this just be like Russia invading Ukraine, America invading Greenland? What if this doesn't end? The point I'm making, what if this doesn't end in just few days? It stretches out somehow. US invasion of Greenland. You know how fucked up that would be? You know how it messes up geopolitics at such a level? Yeah, I don't even like ramifications of that. I can't even think of it. It's insane. I think they're just like threatening, knowing like, okay, probably Denmark will sell it rather than losing in military action. I think that's what they're thinking.
Especially after Greenland's democratically elected Prime Minister, Jens Frederik Nielsen, recently declared that his nation of 57,000 people, quote, "is not for sale." Hence, the behind-the-scenes panic in European capitals. So weird and alarming is all this rhetoric, the logic goes, that it must be serious. Trump really must be considering annexing part of the Kingdom of Denmark, a long-standing ally. Now, given how 2026 has gone so far, it would be a foolish outlet that ruled out a military takeover. The capture of Maduro, if nothing else, has shown not only the full extent of US military power, but also the administration's willingness to use it. As key Trump advisor Stephen Miller recently told CNN in the context of a possible American attack on Greenland, "We live in a world, in the real world, that is governed by strength, that is governed by force, that is governed by power. These are the iron laws of the world since the beginning of time," end quote. Not something you particularly want to hear if you're a Danish soldier tasked with
I mean, US didn't just become powerful now. They've always been there. There's a reason a previous US president didn't just point blank try to attack anything they can. There is a ramification to this, right? And yes, US is powerful, but that doesn't mean US can just go to war with European countries. That's probably not going to end well.
protecting the Greenlandic capital of Nuuk from a foreign takeover. Yet, for all the warning signs that something could be coming down the pipeline, we're going to cautiously venture what may be an unfashionable opinion. US forceful annexation of Greenland remains highly unlikely, not because Trump won't try to get it. All of his actions suggest Nuuk and Copenhagen will soon be at the epicenter of a pressure campaign and possible economic coercion, but because there are good reasons for assuming that military action just wouldn't be worth it. And yes, you can absolutely feel free to clip that and throw it back in my...
Okay, I think if they invade Greenland, they'll literally need approval from Congress. Military operation, like special operation, is a different thing, like Venezuela. Using military to take over an area, yeah, you need Congressal approval. And if he doesn't ask for approval and they just do it, I'm pretty sure Congress would be pissed off. Even if they're pro-Trump, they would not let that slide.
My face if we wake up in a few weeks to find the Delta Force has captured the government of Greenland. We're analysts, we're not fortune tellers. All we can try and do is weigh up the information available to us and make what we hope are educated assessments. And our first and most obvious assessment is that it's not the threat of counterattacks that make military action unlikely. Were the US to go into Greenland heavy, the chances of Danish soldiers fighting them off are roughly equal to the chances of anything coming from Mars. I mean, at least 1 billion to 1. With just 57,000 people calling Greenland home and...
The level of emphasis he's making and all the explanations he's giving, like example he's giving, like that would never happen. Oh God, if that happened, like people will dunk on this video coming back.
Most of them clustered in settlements on the southwest coast, US forces would have to secure only a handful of buildings to declare mission accomplished. Politico half joked that this would take them, quote, perhaps a half hour. But the reality wouldn't likely be much longer. While the entire operation to capture Maduro took less time than the extended edition of Return of the King, overthrowing the Greenlandic government and securing the island might be over and done in the time that it takes to watch 3 episodes of Warfronts, and not the long ones. But to focus purely on the military side of things is to forget that events don't happen in a vacuum disconnected from the wider world. And it's here that we get our reasons for cautiously believing an invasion is unlikely to happen. The real-world conditions, they're just not in place. By the time Maduro was spirited away from Caracas by Delta Force, he was a widely despised autocrat who'd flagrantly stolen an election, overseen one of the worst economic collapses in modern history, and cultivated ties with both drug cartels and violent cross-border guerrilla groups like Colombia's ELN. While the legality of snatching him from Venezuelan soil was dubious, there were very few in the US or abroad who were willing to shed tears over his toppling. Rightly or wrongly, that made the operation an easy sell to the public. At risk of stating the obvious here, none of this applies to Greenland. Prime Minister Nielsen won a free and fair democratic election just last year. There's no suggestion that his government is sending drugs to the...
I mean, it's a Danish prime minister, I mean, of course. There's not going to be much questionable thing there. This is so true. How are you going to sell that? Denmark, considered one of the most happiest places on the planet. Greenland is part of that. So how are you going to sell anything? It's not like their people is going to be unhappy there. That's not going to be the case. Yeah, if they just do that, this would be just point. I think American people will be pissed off. They don't want war. They're like, okay, Maduro is fine. Okay, Iran, fine. Okay, fine. We're fine with Iran as well. Syria, you have to bomb somebody. Okay, fine. Greenland, I don't think that shit would ever work. I think they're like, okay, now this is too far.
United States engaged in widespread illegality or tacitly supporting a network of gangs that is spreading terror in American cities. It's Greenland. We mention this because it's exactly the sort of key consideration that nobody seems to be talking about. Never mind abroad, how do you sell to your own coalition the capture or killing of a young, democratically elected leader who has done no harm to your nation? Because that's what an operation to take Greenland by force would necessarily entail, the arrest or liquidation of not just Nielsen, but other high-ranking Greenlanders who are firmly opposed to American annexation. One of the two MPs representing Greenland in the Danish parliament,
Is it though? Like, you could temporarily arrest them, take out key military structures, and take control of the country by military and release them. You're not the prime minister, fuck you. It's not like they're gonna let them inside the, like parliament or something. If you don't care about any rules and laws and you just want to take the Greenland, you don't really need to worry about anything else, do you?
Chemnitz has declared that, quote, it's completely disrespectful from the US side to not rule out annexing our country. And polls show that the vast majority of the public are similarly opposed to joining the US. One from last year put the numbers at 85% against, with only...
I mean, I'm pretty sure they have the same kind of rights as Denmark is, with free education and free everything. So of course they're gonna be like, no, fuck that. We're not having student loan. What are you talking about? Student debt? What are you talking about? No.
6% in favor. You can't forcefully take over a population that's opposed to you without at least jailing or expelling the leadership from their homeland. And we want you to think seriously about this. Not in the abstract, I mean, hey, this is a fun thought experiment sense, but in the sense of how it would really honestly feel to watch US forces arresting or even killing Greenlandic officials whose only crime is to resist a violent takeover of their homeland. To try and imagine what would truly happen if Jens Frederik Nielsen was dragged, Maduro-style, before a court in New York or just shot dead by US soldiers. That is the key difference between Greenland and recent US military actions in Venezuela against suspected drug boats in the Caribbean or in Iran. Venezuelan exiles in South Florida literally danced in the streets when Maduro was captured. It's hard to imagine anyone cheering as special forces stormed the parliament in Nuuk. Now, you could reasonably ask why this should matter. After all, the Trump administration bombed Iran over the objections of its own base and routinely does things like tearing down the east wing of the White House that polls badly with the public.
I mean, that's a different thing than annexing a fucking country. Imperialism is a different thing. You could always claim, like, yeah, you don't like it, but I'm like freeing people. That doesn't apply with Greenland. Yeah, Greenland feels weird. Like, how would that even work? And I think that would set off bigger chain of events. Every European country will not just break relation with USA. They will see USA as a threat. Because if Trump can do that with Greenland, Trump can do that with UK, France, or anyone. There's not much of like difference after that. So like you just break away from NATO and oppose.
But something tells us that the invasion and annexation of a harmless democracy would be on a whole other level. Visiting fellow of war studies at King's College London, Shashank Joshi, speculated on X that such an order could trigger a crisis within
of course,
the US
it's an
military.
Indian.
Quote, one of the things that cuts against a US effort to seize Greenland by force is that I believe this is one of the few issues where you'll see serious high-level protest and resignations within the US armed forces. End quote. It's also one of the few issues that might trigger serious...
Yeah, I don't know about that. Even things go really bad, people just assume people in the top is going to get screwed, like Trump. If their life is unaffected, if they're living rich, which Americans are, would they resign left and right just out of principle? I don't know. I think they would protest. I think they would do even coup at certain level, go to Congress, go to Supreme Court, try to remove Trump or something, or resignation and point blank protest for military. I don't know. Military is doing fine. The USA is rich. You really need, day-to-day life has to be affected in order for someone to do that, I think.
Blowback from within Trump's own party. Already, at a time when annexation is only theoretical, 8 GOP senators have publicly come out against the president's threats, ranging from Lisa Murkowski of Alaska to Tom Tillis of North Carolina and Paul Rand of Kentucky. Were unilateral military action really undertaken, you would expect more to join them. Senator Paul recently told the Washington Post that, quote, he was unaware of a single Senate Republican who supports taking military action against the territory. This shouldn't be a surprise. After all, Congress only recently passed the 2026 National Defense Authorization Act, which was regarded as a pro-NATO, pro-Europe rebuke to the administration. And nothing would blow up NATO and permanently split the US from Europe quite like a military assault on Greenland. As Danish Prime Minister Mette Frederiksen told reporters last Monday, if the United States decides to attack another NATO country, then everything would stop. That includes NATO and therefore post-World War II security. End quote. This feels even more plausible.
Yeah, but do America care about NATO? That's the thing. NATO is concerning for European countries more than it's concerning from USA. US has always been operating like they are one against many. US is barely joining the NATO. USA doesn't need NATO. But the reality is people would be pissed off if anything happens like that, right? And is there a charter in NATO that if one of their own country attacks them, other countries support the defending one? It's surprising that it's not there.
When you remember that the US would likely have to kill Europeans to take the territory. While Denmark has so far refused offers from France to send soldiers to Greenland as part of a tripwire intended to deter an invasion, there are still Danish troops on the territory. Denmark, remember, was a part of the coalition that sent its sons to die in Afghanistan, serving American interests. As the Atlantic Council writes, in Afghanistan, Denmark fought alongside the United States in the tougher mission areas and suffered the most casualties in relation to its population of all NATO allies, apart from the United States. Now again, we urge you to think about this as if it were a real thing that's really happening.
I think Trump would just claim, like, yeah, but we were funding NATO. You were doing NATO thing. That's of the past. Trump organization can just say that.
Would the US military and American lawmakers really be chill knowing that troops from a steadfast US ally had been killed by US forces, not with the aim of protecting America or upholding democracy, but with the aim of imperial conquest? We mentioned protecting America because that is currently one of the...
It is imperial conquest, but like I said, it's a very instrumental thing that Trump and his organization are trying to do. If USA controls Greenland, I think you can just have a treaty with Denmark. And I think you already have. You have bases in Greenland as far as I know. I don't know why this is the case. But if USA controls Greenland, they can literally choke out Russia's Arctic to Atlantic pathway or like intercept it immediately. And I'm pretty sure you already have a treaty through NATO's and things that you can just use Greenland that way. You can have bases there. You already, I think, have a basis there. I don't know. I don't understand that. Why you have to have Greenland?
Administration's biggest rationales for acquiring Greenland that Denmark has so neglected the territory's defense over the decades that it's now easy prey for China or Russia and will only become even more so as the Arctic warms and new shipping lanes open up, so annexing it is therefore the only way to protect the US homeland.
Oh.
As Trump himself told reporters last
Again,
summer,
you can just have treaty with Denmark, like, yeah, we're putting bases there and increasing defenses there because it concerns us. Denmark would probably agree with that.
We need Greenland from the standpoint of national security. Now, it's true that military investment in Greenland has been inadequate, but that's not purely down to Copenhagen. As the chairman of Denmark's Defense Committee, Rasmus Jarlov, recently wrote on X, quote, "The USA already has a defense agreement with Denmark that gives them exclusive and full military access to Greenland."
What?
But they're not using it. They have downgraded their presence by 99%. Now,
That's what I was saying. Like, you already basically, you probably have a treaty and you do. See, this is commonsensical thing where even someone like I can guess it. What is the problem then? Why you must have a Greenland?
apparently, they are telling their base that they need to invade and annex Greenland because they need to have a large military presence. End quote. Since striking a 1951 treaty, Washington has had almost carte blanche to build bases, house troops, and launch aircraft from or operate ships around Greenland. During the Cold War, over 10,000 troops were stationed there across 17 bases. Those numbers have now dropped to 200 troops in one single base, is not due to Copenhagen or Nuuk. Now, the treaty doesn't give quite the same advantages as the US actually owning the territory, and it would be foolish to say otherwise. But it's a close-run thing, with the treaty updated to include Nuuk after Greenland gained high levels of autonomy from Denmark, requiring little more than the US asking politely before installing some new base. As Danish defense analyst Peter Ernst Ved Rasmussen told the New York Times, quoting, "It is a courtesy formula. If the US wanted to act without asking, it could simply inform Denmark that it is building a base, an airfield, or a port." End quote. It's a similar situation where access to Greenland's critical minerals are concerned. The Wall Street Journal notes that, quote, "American companies already have mining and other economic rights of Greenland," with Nuuk indicating that it's open to expanding those rights even further. This is one of the
I feel like at this point, Greenland is mostly ceremoniously a Danish country. I mean, technically it is, but USA can do whatever the fuck they want anyway. Because they probably realize like USA is a giant and Greenland is basically there, right? and they're probably going to use it. That's why there are treaties there. That's why they have rights there. They can just do that shit. What is the? I still don't understand. Do Trump hate Danish prime minister or something, or Denmark or something? Trump is always saying like we don't want people from certain country. We want people from Denmark, Sweden. What happened? I thought you loved Denmark. You loved Nordic countries. What happened? Trump is giving mixed messages, man.
Major reasons why Europe is so uneasy about Trump's annexation comments. The US can already act pretty much how it wants in Greenland. And the Financial Times reports that Copenhagen is happy to sweeten the deal even further, perhaps even declaring American bases on the island to be sovereign US territory. Yet such deals have so far been rejected or ignored, all while Trump belittles new Danish defense spending on the territory to the tune of billions of dollars. The fear in Europe is that this means the White House won't be satisfied with anything but annexation. But that logic also flows the other way. Europeans are not the only ones who are aware that the US has nothing to materially gain by invading and occupying the island. American members of Congress, military officers, and hopefully members of the public can see it too. And to our mind, that makes military action less likely, not more. So to return to the main theme of this video, it's one thing to depose the hated dictator of a nation deeply opposed to America, one where Chinese and Russian influence is real and tangible. It is another to violently overthrow the democratically elected government of a territory overseen by a treaty ally, all while gaining no material advantage in return. Now, we want to be clear that we are not saying that the US will never acquire Greenland. Times change. The voting population of Greenland is small, and voluntary union with the US might be something Greenlanders decide that they want at some point down the line. Nor are we trying to paint Greenland's relationship with Denmark as all warm and cozy and equal. There are bitter memories of direct rule from Copenhagen, and polling consistently shows that a vast majority of Greenlanders want eventual independence from the kingdom. But we are saying that all the factors we've highlighted so far make an American use of force to annex Greenland both unlikely and counterproductive, possibly even to the extent of causing a permanent rupture within Trump's coalition. Instead, the likeliest outcome seems to be an ongoing
Unproductive doesn't matter if Trump wants something. But yeah, unlikely, I agree with you there. I don't see this happening. Again, if Trump can do this, that's a clear sign that Trump is probably an emperor dictator himself. Because he's dictating, if that's the case. If he ignores Congress somehow, if he ignores everything and somehow just attacks Greenland and take it over, he is by definition a dictator. But I'm pretty sure he can't do that because Congress, you need permission of Congress. You can't just gloss over that.
Influence campaign to try and nudge Greenlanders into embracing America of their own accord. One that may be coupled with a campaign of pressure or coercion against Denmark. Yet even here, the outcome is far from certain. On social media sites like X, it's common to see hot takes flying around about how America could just offer every Greenlander, say, $5 million each to join the US and then smugly sit back as they all come running to Uncle Sam. But polling consistently shows that while there are high-profile Greenlanders who like the sound of such a deal, the majority do not want to become Americans. Per The Economist, though most Greenlanders favor independence and the abuses by Denmark's past colonial administrations are still a neuralgic issue, they do not want to become Americans either. Minds can
See, there's a big social element here. You can't just turn a society. Most of Greenland probably resembles Danish society with all the things that come with it. Somewhat of socialism, somewhat of like free education, free healthcare, the way of thinking, like not having capitalist mentality, like how Denmark is basically, like how Nordic countries are. If you install America there, now you're American, that doesn't work directly. And I don't think they want that. They don't want that shift. Because that could mess everything up. Their way of living could be disrupted. I think that's the problem here.
Change, of course, but Prime Minister Nielsen has noted many times that the rhetoric of buying the island or buying off the islanders is disrespectful, smacking of the same colonialism that has turned so many Greenlanders against Denmark. Hard as it may be for some at the top of the US administration to believe, but money really isn't everything. This video is being made prior to Marco Rubio's meeting with Danish and Greenlandic leaders. It's possible that there will be some breakthrough. Maybe the administration will take a face-saving off-ramp that allows Trump to claim a win. Maybe everyone will be distracted by the collapse of the Iranian regime and Greenland will once again fade into the background. Maybe the US will even make a spectacular offer to Greenland's people that moves the dial on wanting to join America. Or maybe the issue will keep on heating up, turning into the greatest crisis in the history of NATO. Heck, maybe we'll even be proved wildly wrong, and the sight of US helicopters flying over Nuke as gunfire sounds and explosions light up the sky will soon be beamed all over the world. For now, though, with the information that we do have, we will caution people against panicking too much. Never underestimate the power of narrative, of the ability for the ordinary Joe in the street to tell themselves that they are the good guys. When toppling a despot like Maduro or bombing a mad theocratic regime like Iran, that is easy. But after invading and occupying a peaceful island, capturing or killing its leaders, and likely killing European soldiers trying to defend that democracy, well, the American public might feel like they're in that old Mitchell and Webb Nazi sketch that became a meme, asking themselves, are we the baddies? Frankly, we think they're not. For all the might is right rhetoric from Stephen Miller or the gung-ho ravings of armchair warriors on X, our gut instinct is that there is still a large majority in the USA who would balk at their government doing something so flagrantly.
Yeah, I think that's probably US majority, right? This is why they usually shift from Democratic president to Republican president. Majority of people have common sense. These are the extreme you experience, and sometimes extremes also get into the, position of power, but they talk extreme because they know they are calling to their base at certain level. I feel like most people have common sense, at least majority does.
Cruel and evil. Maybe we're being naive. Maybe the lesson of 2026 so far is that the law of the jungle is all that matters, and ordinary Americans in the Midwest diners are just itching to do to Jens Friedrich Nielsen what Trump did to Maduro. But we think, we hope that that's an incorrect read of the mood music.
And that's just stupid. No way that would happen. That would be too much. I think American people would be like, why the fuck we did this? And the worst thing is, like, the world would just basically turn on USA completely. It's like Russia, right? And that would be a very weird thing because world economy is like American economy. And it's just like, I don't know how that would work. That would literally collapse world economy at a certain level. Right? You would think that people just gloss over that, but they would not because of their own self-preservation. If US can just attack Greenland, what else can they attack? Yeah. This is like one of the hard lines that would be crossed. I don't think that's ever going to happen. But yeah, I don't understand that. Why the fuck would you want Greenland? You already have rights to everything. Just go there. It's not like when you were, using Guantanamo, you're like, I'm going to have the whole fucking country. No, you're using Guantanamo. That's yours. It's straight like that. Right? Why would you want Greenland? I don't know. Well, if you like my reaction, subscribe. That would really help out the channel. I'll know what type of videos to react to more. Comment down if you want to do any specific reaction. And I post every day now, multiple videos every day. Probably geopolitics because that's been ramping up recently. So, look for that. And yeah, I'll see you next time.